All right, so here are my top 5 philosophy book recommendations. So I'm making this video because one of the first questions I get asked anywhere that I'm online, or just you guys messaging me on Instagram, is what do I recommend to get started into philosophy? And it's a very hard question to answer, sorry. I just pick some that I think are fairly useful and most people would find interesting. Doesn't mean they're specifically religious, but a lot of them are. And of course, some of them are polemical. So my first recommendation, and I'm going to give 5 physical ones. I know I put in the title 5, but it's really 6. Because I'm going to show 5 physical ones, 1 PDF. And so to start out with the PDF, I'll put it on the screen. It is something that I'm asked all the time. What do I get? What should I read to get into logic? And so if you guys just put the title of the book in your search bar and put PDF, first thing that'll pop up is a free PDF of this book. And the book title is Logic and Structure. Just keep it fairly simple. This book has everything you need. Really, just to get the fundamentals down in logic, just the bare fundamentals. And I think it's a great introduction if you are interested in that. So into the real books, the physical books. The first one that I have is Fear and Trembling by Kierkegaard. And a lot of people think Kierkegaard is just a purely religious philosopher. And if you understand his work, he's really not just purely religious. He's classified, I think, misleadingly as a fadeist. I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly, but basically when people hear about Kierkegaard, they're thinking that this guy's making like some epistemic claim about being unable to know God in an epistemic sense. Unable to come to God, unable to explain God. And really, he's, I think, better classified as an existentialist, maybe doing ontology as opposed to some epistemology. And it's very hard to explain what is going on in the book. It's very hard to read, I think. So you really got to take your time going through it to fully understand it. But I found this to be one of the most insightful books, and it's influenced major works, especially in postmodern thinkers. And I mean, there's no surprise, Wittgenstein called Kierkegaard, he thinks, the greatest philosopher to ever live. Which is kind of surprising to a lot of people, considering Wittgenstein's work didn't seem that like continental, existential to most people. The second philosophy work that I have is another Kierkegaard work, but it is a collection of his, what Kierkegaard called upbuilding discourses, only some of them. But this is called Kierkegaard's Spiritual Writings. And this book is beautiful. It is amazing. If you're a Christian, this is the #1 book that I would recommend to you. It's filled with Bible verses. It reads like a sermon, but it is philosophy. And it's just, I can't describe it other than the fact that it is a beautiful work. It is a work of art. And it definitely influenced me in my faith. Kind of taking a turn, it would seem for most people, is from Nietzsche, Thus Spake Zarathustra, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, however you want to say it. This book is amazing. It is amazing. Now, obviously, Nietzsche was very anti-theist, but a lot of the principles, or I think the core principles of his work are correct. That's not to say what he was saying about Christianity was correct, but what he has to say about being life-affirming, about the eternal recurrence, just his core principles, I think, could really resonate with a lot of Christians. And for me, I think reading and really understanding Nietzsche makes you a better Christian. I don't believe his work is necessarily anti-religious. I think it is anti-dogma. And I think there's a way to be religious without being extraordinarily dogmatic. But it reads in the form of like sections, to which every section is distinct from the other, but they're all connected. And every section is sort of like an amazing life lesson in a way, and a beautiful way of thinking about life, affirming life in a bunch of different ways. You really get into what that means by reading this. My fourth book that I would recommend, and this will probably be the hardest one for you guys to read, but if someone were to ask me what I recommend, Being in Time by Martin Heidegger. And for me, there just is almost no philosophy without this book, at least today, in the 21st century. For me, there's no philosophy without Being in Time. It is just such an influential work. It shot philosophy light years ahead and introduced tons of different fields. What people consider in continental philosophy as post-metaphysics and all of that was because of Martin Heidegger. He's just so influential. It's really hard to get into what this book is talking about, but in Martin Heidegger's own words, he's doing fundamental ontology in this work. So not ontology as it's classically understood as finding the ground of all beings, the being of beings, but what allows anything to appear as itself at all, which is not itself a being. And then he's describing what he calls the care structure. And you'll really get it. He really gets into it in this. It's a very technical book, very hard to read. And I mean, it's a long book. It's almost 500 pages, but it is extraordinarily rewarding. It'll completely shift how you think about the world, reality, everything. In addition to being an intellectual endeavor, more of like a rational endeavor, it is also existential in a lot of ways. Final book, and the one I think is maybe the middle ground between very important in the 21st century philosophy and easier to read and more accessible for most people, is Philosophy in the Mirror of Nature by Richard Rorty. And Richard Rorty defines himself as a pragmatist, and in this book he is really going through the history of philosophy for one, but more specifically the history of philosophy as viewing itself as mirroring a reality or a stable external world to which our concepts and things come into correspondence with. And he's going through a bunch of different philosophers and sort of unraveling his thesis throughout the book that philosophy does not mirror nature, and that to do philosophy in that way is incorrectly. And it's just extraordinarily insightful, and I think it's extremely important because of modern analytic philosophy, which dominates what is considered philosophy today, in the institutions especially, at least in the United States. But it's just extremely important, I think. Richard Rorty, for me, is a great thinker. He has his limits, but he's a great thinker in terms of critiquing modern institutional philosophy. Now that's my top 5 books that I would recommend to someone just generally saying, how should I get into philosophy? If you have any questions, put it in the comments below or message me on Instagram and it will be my Instagram will be in my bio. Thank you guys.